morning. Welcome to another issue of Senior Voice. We bring you some issues for the seniors to deal with and to be concerned about. But right now I'd like to talk to you about our senior center and let you know that the November newsletter is out. 6 whole pages of things for you to do if you come down to the senior center and join in with the other people. I always encourage you to come down for our lunch hour. Lunch is served at 11:45, and it's usually a very nice lunch. And but not more important than the lunch is the fact that you can get out and visit with your fellow seniors. And getting out of your house for a half an hour or an hour and talking with somebody else is the best medicine you could possibly have for that day. But today we, in addition to that, we are very lucky to have our town manager here, Peter Souza, and we wanted to talk to him about some of the issues that are coming up for our election day. And it's things that are really important for the town or a city of, is it a town or a city?
We're a town.
You're a town, okay.
30,000 population.
All right, and I don't know what designates a city from a town, but our town manager is here to tell us a few things about the what's going on in the town and what's coming up for the election. You know, I'd like to compliment you on the tremendous work that you've done for getting us the streets repaved and smoothed out. I was going down Paquonic Avenue yesterday in my car, and it was so smooth. I was actually going beyond the speed limit, and I saw a police cruiser, and I suddenly looked down, as I think you would too, and I was doing 42 in a 35. And of course, I immediately touched the brake and got myself back where it should be. But that all the streets that you have touched this with the repaving and everything are really, really great. And I thank you for that. And I'm sure the rest of the town has too. It's they've been getting a little bit on the bouncy side. But I wanted to ask you about the safety complex. A lot of the towns and cities are getting them around here, and I noticed the one up in Enfield, it says safety complex, and the senior center is lucky to have to be situated next to them. And the one in Plainville, which has been there for quite a while, is also, the senior center is actually part of that. And you know, the seniors count on our providers, the police and the emergency people, and they are doing a terrific job. Any seniors I've talked with who have had to use that service are really, really happy to have it. And sometimes it just means, you know, you fall on the floor and you can't get up. And every time you try to move, it's a pain somewhere. And they are there within minutes. It's wonderful. I hope the fixing the roads and everything is not costing up so much that we can't do other things.
Well, Bernie, we first of all, thank you for inviting me to join you today. We do have a wide variety of services that we provide, as you mentioned, from the senior services to our public works department. Just as a side note, we're repaving approximately 6 miles of neighborhood streets this construction season, and so that's a compliment to the town council for having the foresight to fund those dollars. So we attempt to do between 5 and 6 miles each year with our own town money, and then we augment that with grant monies from either the federal or state government when we can.
Well, they are doing a wonderful job on all those streets. And I see down on Bloomfield Avenue, they've shaved off.
Yeah.
Why do they do that? Do you know?
What they call that, they mill off the first 2 to 3 inches, and below that, the base pavement is usually in good shape.
Oh, yeah,
It's usually
yeah.
those first 2 to 3 inches that get water infiltrates, and then it freezes and thaws, and but the base usually is pretty good shape, and then they just repave it with 2 or 3 inches to improve the longevity, not only the rideability, but the longevity of the road.
Well, that
And
sounds like a great idea.
So part of our paving projects are we have a 6-year capital improvement program that gets updated each year, and within that we include our paving projects that include updating of our school buildings, as well as the projects that are on the ballot for November. One related to the public safety complex, and a second one related to replacing the public safety radio system, town-wide radio system. And so, as you mentioned, the public safety complex is a very important project in that it serves, currently the Bloomfield Avenue serves our ambulance, volunteer ambulance, our volunteer fire department, as well as our police department. And that building was originally built over 55 years ago, in 1963. It was added on in 1988, so 30 years ago.
Yeah.
30 years ago, and so we have a need now to improve that building. And so the town council, starting about 2013, 2014 timeframe, we started to look at that based upon the town council's direction in terms of not only space needs, but also the efficiencies of that building. As you can imagine, a 30-year-old building, 50-year-old building, all the different heating and air conditioning units are getting old. The mechanical systems are insufficient and not very efficient, energy efficient. And so we have a series of needs at the safety complex. And so that project would be done essentially in 2 different phases, Bernie. The first phase would, if approved by the voters, we would renovate a town-owned building that's currently at Day Hill Road and Addison Road.
Okay,
Right next to,
I know where that is.
Right next to our existing Public Works Department that's been there since the late 1970s or so. And so we would first renovate about 30,000 square feet of that building. It used to be housed by, owned by Combustion Engineering, and then eventually Westinghouse owned it. And so the town purchased that about 18 months ago. And so the plan would be to renovate part of that building for the police station.
Oh, yeah.
And then we would renovate the public safety complex, the existing building on Bloomfield Avenue. We would renovate that to meet the fire department's needs, as well as the volunteer ambulance needs, and bring that building up to today's standards and provide opportunities or growth, space for their growth of those 2 different departments.
And that building is, the one you just mentioned, is very close to being the center of the town.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. And that's a good point. That's a great access to the highway for the fire department as well as the ambulance, so they can get north and south relatively quickly. Clearly, Bloomfield Avenue runs the entire width of the town, and so that provides access to town center as well as west towards Bloomfield. And so it's really good for our volunteer ambulance and volunteer firefighters to work out of. Now, our police station has a little more flexibility. That could be located at Day Hill Road because, as you know, our police officers are out on patrol. They have their patrol districts, and so they're already out in the neighborhoods working. And so they don't respond from the police station that often. They're out in the field already.
Now, I was at that Bloomfield building to deposit some drugs that are out of date and things, and there was nobody there. Nobody in the lobby, and the door was locked. What are they using it for now?
It's that is one of our biggest deficiencies that we have at the safety complex now. As you walk into the lobby, and the way it's designed, there's no, if you will, customer service place to greet. And so you go in, you're kind of looking, okay, which way do I go? There's no, and so But also, more importantly, Bernie, there's no public restrooms right off the lobby. You actually have to enter into the secured area of the police department, and that certainly is not a proper design in today's world.
No,
and the restrooms that are close to the lobby are actually not handicap accessible. They're very small. They're built back in back 40, 50 years ago now, and so this would so that's one of the biggest issues that we have. We have to bring visitors, people are going there to get do a variety of different services. They have to go into the secured portion of the building.
Yeah, that's not a good good setup at all. No, that will be rectified when it's moved to Addison Road.
Yes, that would be rectified. There would be the design shows a proper entrance, so you'd come in, and then we have our emergency dispatchers, which work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and so they'll be able to see it, as well as we have records clerks, so if you need to get a report of an accident or something along that lines, they'll be right there as you walk into the building. They'll be able to greet you, and then just immediately to the side will be a couple small meeting rooms, so that officers can come out, and if you need to talk to an officer, they can go into a private space. Right now, you have to have that conversation in the middle of a public lobby, which at times may not be comfortable. And then we'll obviously have up-to-date compliant public restrooms right off of the lobby as well.
And there'll be those facilities also for the police department. If let's say that something happens, they're brought in. They could get first aid or whatever.
Yes,
there at the
absolutely. And so it's a very complex construction project, as you can imagine, especially with the police department. There's specialized equipment, technology. The level of security is significantly different today than when we originally built the building, and so that does drive the construction value up higher. But we're addressing a lot of different needs. For example, when this building was our current police station was built, we didn't have as many female officers.
Oh yes.
And now we have a good number of female officers. We also have officers carry a lot of different equipment. They carry a lot of personal protection equipment, and so that gear has gotten bigger. So the current lockers, you go into the officer's locker room, they've got their bulletproof vest hanging up on doors, trying to dry out, and so it's just there's a lot of insufficient, if you will, functionality within our current police station.
And at the way things change now, it'd be very difficult to anticipate what you're going to need, considering, you'll have LBTGH accommodation you're going to have to plan for. I mean, that's going to happen. You're going to have perhaps times when the police are going to have to stay there. If you had an emergency, they'll stay there for longer periods of time, and so forth. So I can see where it would be very difficult to keep that.
And one, just to that example, what's changed in the last 5 or 6 years is that if we have a juvenile that is for some reason taken into custody, up until 5 or 6 years ago, they could be, if they were being held for 2 or 3 hours until a guardian could come and make arrangements to pick them up, but they could be housed right next to an adult, someone who was there that was in custody that was an adult. Well, in the last 5 or 6 years, that rule has changed. So now that we have to separate the juveniles, they can't be within ear or eyesight or earshot of that adult. So we're actually using we've converted a old conference room into a holding area for a juvenile, so we can meet that requirement. And so that's just taken up space that was previously used for conference and meeting rooms and storage. And so those are some of the things that would, in a new facility, would be addressed. So we're meeting today's rules and regulations.
Yeah. And of course that will change. I was just looking at the 2 items here that caught my eye. Was the radio safety radio system replacement What are you doing now, and what would you have to replace
Yeah,
or install?
Yeah. So right now we have a public safety radio system that is services all of the emergency responders, so fire, police, and ambulance. It also provides service for in our schools. And so it's a combined department, so all the schools can talk to each other. Our police and fire and ambulance can also, if need be, can talk directly to the schools. But we also have our public works department and our public health department also on that radio system. So it's a comprehensive radio system. It was, the system we use today was built in 2003. So it doesn't seem that long ago, but as we know how fast technology changes, the current system that we have is no longer being serviced by the manufacturers, and they are not making the replacement components or parts like they were up until 3 or 4 years ago. But we're having, as you can imagine, any piece of technology or any piece of equipment degrades over time. And so right now, and this is a lifeline, a portable radio for a police officer or a fire, that's a lifeline.
This is,
and so it's critical that they have good coverage. So now if you go to if officers in certain parts of town, they get the connectivity or the communication back to the police station or vice versa is not clear. It's staticky. There's often interference from other outside agencies. So that will be coming over and perhaps blocking out the communication between a Windsor officer and back to the dispatch center.
So like telephone lines have gone out, and it's all over the airways. I can see.
And so what this would do, the proposal would bring us into today's technology, and it would be instead of right now we have an analog, which 16, 17 years old. Now this would bring it into a digital, the digital world. We would also be able to upgrade the school departments. Part of this project would upgrade the school radio system. It would. And I want to make sure everyone knows the importance of that. So if there's an incident, and unfortunately there's more and more incidents happening in our schools where we need to have a significant response from our first responders, they'll be able to talk directly with the school principal or other leader within the schools and be able to help give directions and guidance and be able to provide really good service in that particular situation.
And to help our seniors, that would be like going from those incandescent lights in your Christmas tree to the LEDs that they have now that are so much brighter, cuts down a great deal on the use of electricity, and it's spot on whatever you want to do with it. So, and that's going to be around for a few years. Since it's just getting into its own now.
It's getting into its own, and it's the the current radio systems that are being designed and built are a lot driven by software. And so those software, it's less hardware than in years past. So now it's a lot of software changes that occur, and so a portable radio can last years and years and years. And so it's going to be less about the hardware. It's more about updating the software over time as that changes.
Well, I was watching a TV program of Hawaii 5-0, I think it was, and they had portable radios, and so help me, the thing was the size of a brick and likely weighed as much. That's all gone.
That's gone. That's gone. And I would, but that is just a really important piece, not only on an everyday basis where our public works folks talk to each other, but as you know, when we have a big snowstorm, the police department and the public works are communicating along with the fire department. And the system also will allow us to talk to other surrounding communities. That's what they call interoperability, and so that is that's a big need now. So our fire department often provides assistance to the town of Bloomfield, and vice versa. Bloomfield provides assistance to us, and so this will allow us over time to be able to talk efficiently with this new radio system with each other.
Certainly sounds as though we need it. We got to bring things up to date. But I'm looking at the cost of that. How are we going to pay for that?
That is that's an excellent question, and it's a question that the town council and town staff have been working on for several years. We started looking at both of these projects in the last 4 to 5 years, and so our current, our annual debt payments are now, they're starting to decline. So over the next 6 years, we have 4 big drops in our existing debt. So they each of those 4 drops average about $1 million in decrease. So as those debt payments decrease, we're able to take on a little more debt.
Yeah.
And then we're also planning on using some of our savings account, our reserve funds that have been purposely built up over the course of the last several years. So we'll use about $3 million worth of our savings account, so we don't have to borrow as much money. And I just want to ensure folks that there's information on our town's website, but the town council's been very diligent in looking at the long-term financial impact of these projects. So we also need to ensure that we're repaving our streets, and so they've taken that into consideration when they've looked at the cost of the radio system, the cost of the public safety system. They've also incorporated in what it takes for us to reinvest in our school roofs, in our streets, and replacing other public works equipment. And so that model does show that we can afford that. There will be need to be anywhere from a 2.5% to 3% increase in that debt service amount
to take care of that.
to cover this, but there is a strong financial plan in place.
Okay, and any state monies around or federal monies to replace or have things new?
Yeah, we'll. For the public safety complex, it's a challenge. There's not a lot of grant funds available for that type of work. We're still continuing to explore the possibilities with the radio system. But what we do, Bernie, is that we pursue other grants. There's a fair amount of money for street projects, road repaving projects. So we pursue monies for those type of projects, which allow us to be able to do these other. For example, we have just been notified that we've received 2 grants from the state of Connecticut. One for the repaving of Deerfield Avenue, Deerfield Road. Deerfield Road will be repaved a year from now, next summer. And that's about almost a $1 million grant, which pays for 100% of the construction costs.
That sounds good.
And then we also are anticipating receiving a grant from the state for repaving Archer Road. That's the service road that goes from Kennedy Road out to the Windsor Locks town line. And so we also expect to receive approximately $1 million to cover the cost of that repaving. And so by not borrowing for those projects, it frees up a little bit of capacity for these 2 projects on the ballot.
Now, speaking of fixing up a road, you know, when you come off 187, you get on Spoon Hill Road, and then Miller Road starts there, and you know the area I'm talking about. I don't know, it might be a quarter of a mile. You think you're back in the woods. And I'm wondering, are you doing anything with that, or have you?
No, it's just
for those
who live
folks
there,
who live out there.
Well, there's the part of Miller Road is in East Granby, and then it turns into Stone Road, and so parts of Stone Road have been repaved in the last 4 or 5 years, and so we try to keep that road in decent shape. So we repaved part of that probably 4 or 5 years. So I don't know off the top of my head when that might be on the schedule.
Only a few people live there, but I'm sure they're the ones. And also, before we run out of tape here, oh my gosh, we don't talk about tape anymore. It's all digital. When we have a big something for the safety complex itself for those buildings. And I see here $33 million. Is that right? Yes, $33 million. Now that's a big chunk. That's got to come from more than the taxpayers.
Well, again, that's part of that multi-year financial forecast that the town council has worked on in conjunction with town staff over the last several years. That does take it, we're able to do both of these projects plus our regular reinvestment in our other capital needs, including schools and roads, because of those large drop-offs in debt. So we clearly, it's a significant amount of money to ask the voters of, but they're very important public safety projects that have been planned for over the course of the last 5 or 6 years.
And you're not expecting our voters to reach in their pocket and pay $33 million.
No,
this is all taken care of with averaging and so forth.
Absolutely. That's what we do for major projects like these. We borrow monies, just like a home mortgage. We borrow it for either a 15-year length of term or 20-year length of term. These, because of the dollar amounts, these, and the longevity of the building, these buildings will be here for 25, 30, 40 years, again, before we have to do any major improvements like roofs or anything like that. So we're going to borrow for 20-year period. So that spreads out those costs over the course of the life of the asset, because obviously it's a generational piece. Folks that are using those today pay their share. Folks that in 20 years from now who are living in town, they'll be paying their share as well.
Okay. And this, when you borrow money, and I didn't want to get too far into this, but when you borrow money, do you borrow it through bonds so that it's you're not paying, let's say, the current rate that I'm paying for my mortgage?
Yes, we do borrow through what they're tax-exempt bonds, and so they're fairly attractive to different corporations and banks to buy because they get a tax preferential taxes on that. But we borrow that, and it's at about a little bit less than what a consumer rate would be. So if you went to a bank and you wanted to buy a car, you're going to be paying a little bit more than what we're paying because of that tax, because they're tax exempt. I see. So we do have a AAA credit rating with Standard & Poor's, which is the highest rating that a municipality can receive. And so that means that we're good credit. We got good credit, and so we're able to. That also reduces the interest rate a slight bit.
So your score would be somewhere around 700.
I think we'd be 700 plus, I think, Bernie.
Okay. Well, that sounds like a pretty thorough explanation of these, how the money is being spent and where it's going. I am very pleased with the appearance of the roads and also the appearance of downtown Windsor. I thought this summer particularly, with those big pots, I don't know who put them there, but those big pots of flowers, must have been the maintenance department who looked after watering them, but they were beautiful, and they made things look so perky and looked after. And we really thank you for that.
Well, I will certainly pass that along to our Public Works Department that does a fantastic job at our facilities.
Yes, they did. Yeah. Thank you for coming in. This has been terrific.
All right, Bernie, thank you.
I don't always get to see you up close. You're always up there giving, and you're so full of information. Well, that is our senior voice for today. And but do go to our senior center. Look, there are 6 full pages in this magazine of things that you can do and get involved in. And you know what? If you talk to Millicent, who is our office manager, and tell her that you have an interest that doesn't show up here, you would be able to get something started and get some of your fellow town folks to come and join you in doing it. One young man said he was interested in folding paper. I said, well, I'm not interested in folding paper, but I'll bet you could find somebody who could. And he started, and he did. And they're making all kinds of things, origami, I think they call it. And it did look like fun. Thank you very much for watching Senior Voice, and we will be on TV again. Hope that was helpful to you, and thanks again to Pete Souza for being here.